Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Know the Bible, Plain and Simple, looking at the stories of the Bible. Story number 27 today. We continue to be in the life of Jesus today. Jesus sets free. We have a few stories to look at regarding Jesus setting people free from demons and setting people free from death. Great chapter to read in preparation for today would be Mark chapter 5. It has a little bit of both in it. A great chapter to read, powerful story. We'll cover those stories as part of our teaching today. When I think about demons and death, I think about Jesus really treating this as something to set people free from, as though these are bondages on them. Demons kind of hold people from being who they are. Death keeps people from who they are meant to be, which are living creatures. But in terms of the stories today, there are 6 different kind of unique stories I want to look briefly at, but good stories to know. One is right at the beginning of Jesus' ministry. He frees so many people from demons or from unclean spirits is often what it's called. Cast the demons out, cast the unclean spirits out, and he really begins his ministry with that. He's teaching in Capernaum in the synagogue, kind of on the first day of his teaching and introducing, talking the scripture, and all of a sudden a man shows up with an unclean spirit. Shouldn't be there because he's unclean, so it means he shouldn't even be in the synagogue. And rather than casting him out, Jesus casts this demon out of him and makes him clean. Kind of sets the stage for what he'll continue to do throughout. Then I think about another quick little story, but very powerful, is the raising of the widow's son in a town called Nain. A woman who'd already lost her husband, now she'd lost her only child as well, and they are doing the funeral march out of town to bury the body. And Jesus stops them midway, tells the woman not to weep, tells the man to rise up, and I guess he sits up in the coffin and helps him down, and he gives the man back to his mom. And very powerful, though very brief, not many details about it, a story of Jesus raising someone from the dead. A more detailed story about casting out demons is in our reading today, Mark chapter 5. Other gospel writers have this story as well. Jesus goes across the lake. It's kind of like specifically to search out this guy as though he knows that he's there. This man who is so full of the demonic that I think many of us would just call it, this guy is just, his heart is evil. He is so evil through and through. And he lives among the tombs. No one can bind him. They obviously feel the need to bind him. He's violent. Um, and yet Jesus sees right through him and sees him as a man that he wants to set free. He asks the demon's name because the demon knows who he is. The demons always seem to know who Jesus is. The demon says, "I'm legion, for I am many." And then the demons, interesting, the demons cry for mercy from Jesus and say, "Don't cast us out into the abyss." And Jesus says, "Oh, there's some pigs over there. Pigs are unclean animals." And he casts the demons into the pigs, and the whole herd of pigs are filled with these demons, and then they run off the cliff and run in and right into the water, and they all drown. Very interesting story. The town people then are upset about this because they're freaked out because they're so used to this man being so evil, and now he is not. They're used to him being crazy, and now he's sane. They're used to him being wild, and now he's there sitting at Jesus' feet listening. That enough is enough to confuse them. They're probably also upset because they just lost, many people lost their livelihood with all these pigs on account of this evil man. Okay. And so the townspeople want to run Jesus out of town. You need to leave. And the man who is free wants to go with Jesus, and Jesus says, "No, you go home and tell people what God has done for you." Kind of in the sense that since Jesus isn't allowed to stay and share the good news himself, he sends this man to go do what the townspeople won't let him do. Go share the good news about God. Very powerful story, one worth remembering. Then another story of Jesus raising someone from the dead. Actually touched on this one last week with the healings, because this is Jairus, who is a a priest in the temple asks Jesus to heal his daughter. Jesus gets interrupted, if you remember, by a woman who's been bleeding for 12 years, who gets healed. This is a 12-year-old girl, need connection. By the time he gets to the house, she's already dead. Jesus says, well, she's sleeping, which is interesting because scripture kind of talks about death as sleep, but um, people laugh at Jesus. Jesus casts them out of the house, and he goes to the girl and he tells her to get up. And sure enough, life returns to her, and the family is overwhelmed. Though in this case, interestingly, Jesus says, don't go telling everyone what took place here. Um, Maybe he's not ready for everyone to bring their dead relatives to him, though that day will come in the day of resurrection at the end of the time. So uh, let's see, two more stories. One is, this is an interesting one. After Jesus comes down from a mountain, which is a story we'll get to another time, he comes across a father with a son who the son is filled with an unclean spirit, foams at the mouth, convulses, uh, almost tries to kill himself at different times. The father's beside himself. The father had asked the disciples to cast the unclean spirit out, and it seems as though the disciples couldn't do it. And now the man goes to Jesus. And the way that the man asks Jesus is this: Jesus, if you can do anything, please, for my son. And Jesus turns and is like this. He says, if I can, okay, with God, all things are possible for those who trust him. And it's at this where the Father responds to Jesus, and it's one of my personal prayers because I think it's a prayer that I often pray, and I like it from the original Greek translation. He says, I do trust, help my untrust. Okay, and so the man just kind of admits that while he does trust, but he does have untrust too. He doesn't always believe. He doesn't always have that faith as strong as he would like. And Jesus does the work, of course Jesus does, and he casts the unclean spirit out of the son and sets the son free. And in so doing, I would say sets the father free to trust God that much more as well. And then final story from being set free from both demons and death is probably the most famous of the resurrection stories, where Jesus raised someone from the dead. That's the story of Lazarus, and that's in John chapter 11. Another great chapter to read. If you haven't read it, please take time to read John chapter 3. Lazarus is sick. Lazarus is one of the kind of friends of Jesus. They've known each other for a long time. Jesus is close with Lazarus' sisters, Mary and Martha. And Mary and Martha send word to Jesus. He's out of town, say, hey, Lazarus is sick. Basically, will you come and heal him, please? And Jesus puts off healing him. He says, no, he tells the disciples, not yet, because I'm going to show God's glory here. And so Jesus kind of waits for Lazarus to die. Then he goes. Lazarus is already dead, and he's been in the tomb now for 4 days by the time Jesus travels there. In the tomb for 4 days, so decomposing already happening, all these things. The sisters, Martha says, you know what, I still believe, I still trust that if you were here, you could have healed him. I know you didn't, but I still trust that you can do these things. Jesus says, okay, do you know, I can raise your brother from the dead. And he says, yeah, I know on the last day he'll rise up. Jesus says, well, I am the resurrection and the life. And they call Mary. Mary comes as well. She too says, I know that if you were here, you could have saved him. Jesus, at their grief, he weeps with them as he goes to the tomb where Lazarus lay. And then he blows their minds when he says this, take away the stone. And the sisters are like, hey, we love you. We know that you could have healed him. We know your love for him. But, body stinks after a while. It's been 4 days. Take away the stone. And they take away the stone. And that's where Jesus calls out, Lazarus, rise up. And sure enough, all of a sudden it says the dead man who's no longer dead now rises up still in his grave clothes, to which Jesus then says, unbind him and let him go, set him free, unbound from death, unbound from his grave clothes. And such a powerful sign that Jesus does here that it really puts into play those who are against Jesus to say we need to get rid of this Jesus. And so this really feeds right into the plan to arrest and crucify Jesus. But we won't get to that till a little later. We got a lot of other stories to go through as well. Let's see. With all these stories, I think what comes to mind for me, one of the things is Psalm 139, which is beautiful, beautiful psalm. Again, another psalm. It'd be another chapter. It'd be great reading if you have the time. In the middle of it, it says, "I praise you, for I am wonderfully made." Where the writer of the psalm just kind of recognizes that God, you love us. I don't understand why you love us, and we can try to hide from you and run from you, and you're always there. And yet you love us from when you made us in the womb to our dying day and beyond. You love us, and you have made us so wonderful, and you value us. And I think that's what's important today. I go back to that evil, crazy man whom society had already labeled as this is a nut. He's not worth anything. And Jesus, in comparison to this one evil man with a legion of demons in him, and then how a fortune of money in those pigs right there. So it's no contest. A human's life is always more important. A human's life, I don't care how evil they are, I don't care what kind of label society puts on them. A human's life is always more important. And so he sets the man free at the expense of whatever. It doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, it's going to come time where he sets all humanity free at the expense of himself. For so great are we in the eyes of our God. Okay, what stands out to you today? Share some time with people in your household, or connect with someone. Which one of those stories, or which parts of those stories, with Jesus freeing people from demons, unclean spirits, freeing people from the grave, as well? What stands out to you? Share that with each other, and of course, take some time to pray for and with one another. And as always, take a moment to close with the Lord's Prayer. And next week, oh, I can't remember offhand what it's going to be, but I'm sure it's going to be a good one. So we'll cover, I don't think it's parables yet. Jesus feeds next week. Next week is some food stories about Jesus. Look forward to seeing you then. Thanks. Bye-bye.